We all have those habits that we love and those that we don't love. For those that we love, we cherish them. They're part of us, they're part of who we are. But for those that we don't love, we're kind of embarrassed about them. We don't want people to know about them. It kind of makes us feel, uneasy. And when we try to change those habits, it's kind of a bit of a task. So today I'm going to be showing you the psychology of habits so that you see how habits are actually formed. This way you're able to better off know how to start off good habits and to remove those bad habits, and to be very conscious of the habits that you end up forming. Now, the first thing to note is that your habits are formed first from your thoughts. You first of all think of something and then you do it, and then you do it over time, and that becomes your habit. It doesn't just jump to become your habit all of a sudden. So it graduates from a thought to your actions and then becomes a habit. Now, your thoughts are not just formed in isolation. Something must have triggered your thoughts, either something or someone. And this is what I call your trigger points, your entry gates. And these are the things that you need to really guard. Your entry gates are the things that feed information into your mind. And these are your eyes, your ears, your taste, your skin, that's for feeling, and your smell. Most importantly, your eyes and your ears, and even your feeling, your skin. So if you look at your eyes, what do you see? The things that you see, whether you see it consciously or subconsciously, things that you might have just passed by chance, influence your thoughts. So somebody can just say something, maybe hyping something, and the next thing you know, you're thinking about it, and the person might not have even been talking to you. You might be talking to somebody else, but you heard it, and so you're just wondering why you are lying in bed and thinking about that thing. Not because you really wanted to think about it, but because you just somehow heard it along the way. And this can be anything, even your feelings. So maybe somebody hugs you in a certain way, and once the person hugs you, you felt a certain way, and the next thing you know, you're thinking fondly about that person because of how you felt. So several things can affect your thoughts. So the first point of call for being able to control your habits is, first of all, to control the things that you think about. And the best way to control the things that you think about is by guarding your gates. Be careful of what you listen to. Be careful of what you watch. Be careful of what you feel. Be careful of what you smell. Be careful of what you taste. Be careful of all these things, especially what you see and what you hear, because they have a very huge way of impacting you and making you think of things. So it's very important that you guard your gates. Guard it very religiously. Now, your thoughts have to follow different points before it becomes a habit. And the first point is what I call the fantasy point. This is the point where your trigger leads to a thought. So something just occurs to you. You're just sitting down, and the next thing you're thinking about biting your nails, or you're just sitting down and you're thinking about taking drugs, or you're thinking about doing this and that, whatever thoughts that comes to your mind. Now, once that fantasy just comes in, it's still at the fantasy stage. Anything can actually occur to your mind. That's why it's called fantasy. Something can just pop up anyhow. It's just like when you receive a pop-up ad that you did not expect, it occurs to you. So the next point is what I call the indulgence point. This is where you start indulging that fantasy. So that fantasy pops up in your mind all of a sudden, and the next thing, you're now dwelling on it, you're now pondering on it. The moment you are indulging that fantasy, you are already giving it more strength and more wings in your life. So when negative fantasies pop up in your mind, if you don't want it to develop, immediately kill it. So let's say you're working on your laptop and an erotic ad just pops up on your screen, and the next thing you know is that you just think about porn. Now, there are two ways you can handle that. If you immediately kill that thought at that moment, where you just cancel it from your mind and just move on with what you're doing, great. That stops there. It doesn't lead to the next one. But if you start indulging that thought when you're not thinking about that erotic ad that you saw, or you're not thinking about watching it and saying, well, I would like to watch that, nobody will see me, I'm alone, and you start, dwelling on that, the next thing you would realize is that you would get to the third point, which is the action point. When you indulge a thought, it leads to action. Now, when it comes to the third point, which is action, the next thing it leads to is the fourth point, which is reaction. Once you do that thing, there's a reaction that comes from it. If it is something that is positive, what you will realize is that you'll be excited about it. You want to do it again. You actually be looking forward to when you can do it again. You will be really happy with yourself. But if it is something that is negative, two things can happen. At first, you might feel pleasure from the thing that you have done because you have fulfilled what you wanted to do all along. You have fulfilled that thought that was nagging you. But the next thing that will come from it will be a negative reaction. You start feeling bad for doing that. So let's say you've told yourself that I'm not going to watch porn, and then you're working on your laptop and an erotic ad pops up, and then you remove it. Now that thought pops up in your mind, which is your fantasy, and then you now started to indulge that thought, and before you know it, you have gone to a porn site to watch it. At the point that you're watching that porn site, you are actually feeling pleasure and you're happy about it. But afterwards, you start feeling bad about it. Oh, I said I was not going to do this thing. And then you start feeling bad. This is like sin. If you're a Christian, this is like sin. When you don't want to do something, and then you have told yourself that I don't want to do this thing. And then before you know it, you react and do that thing. At the point when you're doing that thing, you are actually happy. You feel that release for doing that thing. But afterwards comes the regret, where you start thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So when it comes to that regret, this is where things can begin to change. If you regret that action, you can then tell yourself that, you know what, I'm going to be more conscious about the second stage, the indulgence stage, where I'm not going to indulge this thing at all. If you can control the second stage, which is indulgence, you have done a great job by keeping those things that you don't want to have as your habit away from you. But if you cannot control that indulgence point, the chances are you're going to be doing things that you don't want to do, or you're going to keep on struggling with those bad habits. It starts with the thoughts. Now, if your reaction to an action that you carried out is positive, is something that you're okay with, the next thing that you would realize is you get to the next point, which is influence. You would want to influence others to do the same thing that you've done. So let's say you're hanging out with your friends. The next thing you tell them is, I tried smoking yesterday and it was dope. You guys should get the feeling. It's actually on point. You'll not even realize when you start talking about it and trying to influence other people to do it. Now, once you start talking about it and trying to influence people, and people are getting on board with it, everybody is trying to influence their friends and, talk to their friends. In one way or the other, you're influencing your friend, whether you like it or not. Now, once you have your caucus of people who do the same thing as you, the next stage that you get to, that's the next point, is the ambassador point. This is when you would want to get society to accept this thing as okay. So let's look at these things, these points with very important topics. And a good example would be abortion. So let's say you are pregnant and a thought comes to your mind to abort the pregnancy. The next thing you get to is that you start indulging that point and you start thinking, okay, maybe I can do it. It's actually not bad. It's a fetus. Is this, is that, is that, is that. And you start pondering on that. When you begin to ponder on it so much, the next thing that it will get to is that you would carry out that action. You would abort the child. Now, once you do that abortion, the next thing you would realize is, at the point of doing it, you might feel regret at that point. You feel, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And if you feel regret, then you can retrace your steps where next time, or if any of that kind of thing happens again, you're going to not take that same action. So you're going to not let yourself even indulge that thought in the first place. You're going to cancel it, that it's not an option. So assuming in the indulgence point, you didn't even get there. You just canceled the fantasy from that point on. You won't indulge in it. But because you had indulged in it, you now went into the action. Now, if you are okay with that action, the next thing you get to talk about is influencing other people that it's okay to do this. So you talk to your friends. So if you have a friend who gets pregnant, who's thinking about it, of course you're going to advise the person that it's not a big deal. And the next thing you know, you'll be influencing your couples, the people that you can influence about it, or you want to get them to buy your thoughts or agree with you on that subject matter. Now, if you're able to influence your friends to agree with you on that subject matter, the next thing that you realize is that you would move to the ambassador stage, where you will now start wanting society to accept it, where you'd have videos online, or you can be talking to in bigger gatherings to speak for it, where somebody can post something about abortion tomorrow now, and then you just start saying I'm pro-choice, you can't tell me what to do, and people have a right to do this about their bodies, and you start being for it. So whatever thing that moves from you doing a thing to being okay by you, the next thing you realize is that you would want to be an ambassador for that thing. You start trying to get society to accept it, and that's what we see today when people are trying to make society to approve of abortion and say that it's okay. Now this goes into every single sector, every single area. Let's say politics, let it be social reforms, let it be about homosexuality or gender, let it be about any subject matter. Once somebody has carried out that action, when it has moved from a thought to an action, they either move to regret and go back and try to cancel it, or they move forward with it and end up being ambassadors for that thing. So the essence of this video is really to get you to understand the process, so that you are more conscious, first of all, about your trigger points, what you see, what you hear, and all of that great stuff. Be very conscious about that. If you know that certain triggers lead you to think about certain things, and you're most vulnerable to indulge in those thoughts, then you actually block those triggers entirely. So if you think that if you see an erotic scene in a movie, it triggers you to indulge that fantasy that comes from seeing that stuff, and then before you know it, you go watch porn, then now you're going to be more conscious to make sure that I even block the trigger in the first place, where I don't even watch movies that have sexual content, or I decide that if there's a movie that has a sexual content, I'm going to skip those kind of scenes. And you're more conscious about the things that you even allow in the first place. And even when things happen that is out of your control, where you see something or you hear something that's out of your control, and the next thing you know is that thought comes to your mind, you know that you don't even want to indulge that thought at all. So you start kicking against it, you start fighting that thought, you just don't allow that thought to dwell at all in your mind, and it stops there. So I hope that you learn these things, and it takes practice. It doesn't happen overnight for you to be able to master how to control your thoughts and control your actions. You have to keep at it. So I hope this video has been very insightful for you, because this is the Yosi Kingdom, where we try to help you make your outstanding self ignite by talking about important everyday stuff in a fun and exciting way. And I would like to see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.